folks. This is Matt Cap here. We're going to be talking about something interesting that's been trending across social media, a huge controversial topic, and that's going to be on the film Cuties, which has been a huge center of outrage this week. And believe me, the buzz is still feeding off this movie. So I think it's time to break down what's going on. So, Netflix has put out this film, Cuties, under the other name Mignons, and this was directed by a French Senegalese woman who wanted to tackle this as a coming of age movie about 11-year-old girls, 11-year-old dancers, and the film has met with film festivals in its run, and even had like a warm reception with the Sundance Film Festival. So Netflix wanted to get the distribution rights and distribute this movie off their platform. And little did they know is that their favor in kind of distributing Cuties really backfired heavily, because I think it was just a month or 2 months ago where Netflix had put out this poster in promoting the movie, and what we're going to look at here and examine is pretty much this is the original poster for Mignons, and this looks like a pretty harmless poster. Well, I would say that the film is actually an R-rated movie, but yeah, it's just this image of these young girls just celebrating on the streets of some French town within France. Not sure of the exact setting for this, but yeah, there's a bunch of girls just hanging out and stuff. And this is the poster that Netflix had put out, which is the characters wearing these very skimpy, body exposed like dance outfits, and one of them is kind of like twerking in the background, or another one is in the foreground. And so it's a very sexualizing poster, and I think that really backfired Netflix pretty hard, because as soon as people saw the poster, people have like come out and say that the movie is pro pedophilic. It's hypersexualizing these girls, and it's borderline pornographic as well. A lot of people are saying about this movie. And now that the movie has been out for streaming platforms, I think the statement has been said is that a lot of people are responding negatively. This movie has like a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes by critical reviews, and it stands, I believe it stands at a 4% of audience ratings. The audiences and the people who aren't within the critical circle are really vile towards this movie, and for the right reasons. And Jesus Christ, give me one sec. And so right now there is some strange media backing with this movie, and strangely enough, you even have like journalists such as Scott Middleton who are promoting this movie and pretty much just like shutting away the criticisms and any sort of proposals on how this movie could work. There was also a tweet made by a guy where you can make a movie on the subject matter without without making some sort of like titillation factor with these girls. And this was a tweet directed to Scott Middleton, and Scott Middleton's response: "Well, I'm sorry we find this titillating," as in some sort of like backhanded way that this user was making a fair proposal on how you can do this kind of movie, but then Scott Middleton just kind of like tries to normalize the subject matter with Cuties and gives off this very backhanded, like very condescending response. And so even I give my own responses to Scott Middleton and how full of shit he is. But basically what I'm boiling down to is since there's a lot of media backing with this movie, and Netflix has gone its way out to promote it, and really, instead of just like apologizing to the public, I would just like cut the film out of like streaming in their out of their library. But because they got so much stock into the movie, then of course it's going to be out on Netflix, and of course Netflix is going to like take the heat that's going to come their way. But basically, what I'm getting to with this movie is that the film, according to media journalists and to the filmmakers and to Netflix, the movie is pretty much just trying to comment on the exploitation of young girls, of young like 11-year-old girls, and also trying to like counteract the idea of exploitation about these sexual dances and stuff and the sexualization with these young girls. But basically, what I heard about some people, especially Star Wars Girl 77, posted out like a live cast of this movie, is that the movie is essentially not saying anything about the subject matter. It's really glorifying and hyper praising as like this weird celebratory thing for young girls. And it's essentially what it comes down to is the whole movie outside of the whole dance competitions. And I did look at a clip at their dance scene, and what it is pretty much just like weird layering shots of the girls in these very exposed outfits, images of like shots of girls just like twerking, drive humping on the floor, and you even get like very weird pornographic like camera angles of the girls in places, and it's a very disturbing and uncomfortable thing to watch. And if that's the thing that they want to go with in order to promote this message, then it's really just about just disgust value, shock value, and I don't think the audiences are going to get anything out of the message, but just like the disgusting nature of these 11-year-old girls, these minors, doing these overt sexual dance activities. And even across the film, from what I've gathered, is that outside the dance competition scenes, you have these girls just like hanging out with each other, and essentially they're doing the same stuff. They're practicing their dance moves. They're trying to they're trying to like prep the other girls into like getting sexual as possible in their dance routines. And there's also a couple scenes where they are at some sort of club or some sort of dance stage, and they're outside of the security gate, and so this security guard is not letting these girls in, despite the fact that they are like performance dancers. And so these girls have the right mind to pretty much just like dance, twerk, drive hump on the floor in front of this security guard, and there's like other like older men involved that are watching this, and they're kind of like pleased by it. But so far the movie doesn't really say anything about the subject matter in terms of how wrong it is for like older men who are like in their 30s or 40s are like titillated by this shit. And it seems like it's just there for like the glory factor. And there's also this weird moment mentioned in her review where these girls are essentially just like chilling, eating gummy bears, but they make these weird orgasmic sounds, and it's shot in a way where when they're eating gummy bears, that milky mix of like just pretty much just like your saliva while you're eating gummy bears it's coming off like it's coming off just like very sexual. And I don't even know why they framed it this way, because no 11-year-old girl in their right mind would ever do this in a real life scenario. I mean, I hang out. I grew up in middle school. I hang out with friends of mine, and they essentially never ever do any of this shit. And it's weird that critics are just normalizing this thing as like this weird celebration of just like young girls discovering their sexuality at the age of 11. And I think that's very disturbing coming off of these people. And right now, because of the whole outrage, Netflix is losing subscriptions. And they recently just had their stocks dropped in the wake of this controversy, which is good because I think Netflix deserves to get whatever heat has been handed to them in terms of this decision on getting this movie out on their streaming platform, and which really leads to the big conclusion I'm reaching here is that in order for me to like get the full context, I will have to just watch it. And guess what? I'm not gonna watch this fucking movie. I'm not gonna watch this on Netflix. My Netflix account has been canceled, and I keep be getting emails that Netflix wants me back on without even a free trial. So if you want me back on, if you care that much, give me a free trial. But I mean, as long as you promote shit like this, then I say fuck the free trial for what it's worth, because I don't want to promote shit for people who dislike their audiences for putting out stuff like this. And it's the same criticism I had with The Last of Us Part 2, where in different contexts, the leaks were revealed ahead of time of the game's release, and people just disliked how they portray the LGBT subject matter and themes, and they hated how they pretty much like destroyed the original characters of the first game. Therefore, it was a really bad story based on what was leaked. Now, it wasn't 100% true, but once when I got around to see the game, I truly got the full context. They really lied to the audiences and consumer bases of their gaming studio, and essentially, it's a terrible story. And similarly, this controversy has also came up with Mulan, where the Mulan remake is getting some it's getting some heat from the Chinese government for shooting at one of their concentration camps. And we know that China is a communist government, but I mean that's another subject I won't get into. But Mulan is also pushing out is having some controversy too, in the wake of a film that nobody really wanted, and it's just there just to promote some female empowerment message, as they did with Star Wars and in some other forms of media by Disney. But essentially this. So media journalists are pulling out weird double standards. Even people on Twitter here is essentially I even saw this thread that was trending, and that was concerning the film Taxi Driver, directed by Martin Scorsese. And what it basically boils down to is because Cuties is gaining all this controversy, so should Taxi Driver. And much like these people who fail to ignore the context of what Taxi Driver is saying, they decide to just go after any media that seems to depict child prostitution or sexualization of minors. And if you guys haven't even seen Taxi Driver, it's basically just Travis Bickle, who is a ex-Marine who was in Vietnam, and he's having he's a very disturbed man who moonlights his life, driving a cab around the disgusting and grimy streets in New York City. And so he comes across Jodie Foster's character here, who's in like a prostitution ring, and at the first reveal of Jodie Foster's character, he's ultimately repulsed by the fact that a girl her age is out there in this very grimy and murky nightlife in New York City. And so the character convinces Jodie Foster to go back home, stop doing this shit, because this is so wrong what you're doing, and these people are wrong for exploiting you that way. That essentially the crux of the film is that he's disturbed to the point where he wants to inflict violence, and he attempts to assassinate a political figure, but at a change of heart, he goes out of his way to actually take his violence on the pimps and the peddlers who are exploiting Foster's character out there, and he kills them in a very bloody fashion, and it's very gratuitous. I know people have complained about it, but it's the kind of justice that we all wanted, and I think it's well played with Travis Bickle's character where he goes. But yeah, people are trying to put this as like a weird double standard or false equivalency, and I think it's really biting them in the ass for a lot of people, and I'm one of the people who are calling out on this bullshit. But yeah, so essentially back to Cuties. What I'm really getting to this is that if you already know that you're going to be repulsed by this movie, knowing like what's going on behind the scenes and how it's being framed by a lot of people, then there's no real reason to put money out and subscribe to Netflix for a month's worth and watch this movie because while people will argue I don't have the full context, I do have enough context of what Netflix is pushing because in their history, Netflix has canceled a lot of like promising shows, even some of their Marvel TV shows in favor of stuff like 13 Reasons Why, and even Netflix itself even tweeted like this weird clip from like some sort of show or movie about transgender kids, and it's pretty much like the scene takes place in a hospital, and there are two kids where one of the kid is on hospital bed, and it's actually a boy, but he's dressed as like a girl, and so the doctors diagnose this kid and just refer to him as as a boy, considering like the boy has probably been born on this hospital and has been helped out these doctors as were implied. And then this young girl just kind of like berates these highly professional, well certified doctors by not addressing the boy as a girl, considering how he's dressed, and it just comes out it comes off like parody. I swear to God. And speaking of parody, I mean, Cuties just feels like the equivalent of that one South Park episode where it's called Stupid Spoiled Whores, where Wendy Testerberger's friends are, sexualizing themselves in like this weird sexual trend going on, and they're worshiping Paris Hilton, and it takes like a gimp like Mr. Slave to say that it's wrong. And that's what it is. It's essentially Stupid Spoiled Whores without the satire. And just to go on the David Stewart philosophy, just don't give money to people who hate you, because Netflix clearly doesn't respect like the audience in putting out content like this, and they clearly have other priorities going on when it comes to approaching their content. And I think the media journalists backing up this movie, I mean, who have been opposing at these hard leftists, they might as well just bought Trump another 4 years come the election. But that's all I gotta say. I mean, tell me what you guys think. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you do plan on watching Cuties, I say just don't waste your time on this. I know some people are going to watch it, but I think it's going to be a very difficult movie to even get a grasp on. And I think Netflix is going to they're going to have some tough recoveries from their stock losses, and they might as well just change their priorities on giving us content that we want to watch, not for what they want. But that's all I gotta say. But yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. You may follow me on Madcap Productions and follow me on YouTube, where coming soon I'm gonna have a live cast discussion with somebody, and I'll keep you guys posted. But yeah, just sub to Madcap, where we'll continue to subvert your expectations by calling out Hollywood's bullshit, and big time, this is definitely Netflix's bullshit. But thanks again for watching, and have a good night.